Today's episode of Bump to Business Owner is proudly sponsored by Accountant She, the disruptive, holistic and person-centred accounting team helping to take you from bump to business owner and beyond. From fully outsourcing your business finances to strategic and enhanced maternity planning, we've got you covered. And if you don't need an accountant just yet, but want completely free, accessible, consumable financial education, then you can find me everywhere that you consume content at accountant_she.
Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall, and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I'm your host, Caroline Marshall, and today we are talking to Gemma and Laura, founders of Tired Mums Coffee. Gemma and Laura are two tired mums on a mission to boost the motherhood experience through creating an exclusive community. Oh, exclusive, inclusive? I'm going to do that again because that's annoyed me that I said that. Gemma and Laura, oh, it's this time of night. I'm blaming that. Right. Gemma and Laura, two tired mums on a mission to boost the motherhood experience through creating an inclusive community for all. They are an absolute inspiration for all of us. They are driven to make a change and start a business around full-time jobs and the 5 children they have between them. Gemma and Laura's paths first crossed during their NHS careers, and one day, over a conversation in a soft play centre with coffees in hand, the concept of Tired Mums Coffee was born. Both on their second maternity leave at the time and noticing a lack of peer support for mums. They had also recently learned of a tragic suicide of a mother and decided that they wanted to make things better. Developing a deep love of coffee, especially since becoming increasingly sleep deprived in those years, led them to explore how coffee could be used to make a positive change. And thank you so much for coming, guys. I've been so excited to chat to you for ages. And please forgive, we are doing this in the evening because you guys have full-time jobs and I have little ones dancing around upstairs. So we'll see how today goes. How are you doing?
No, we're good, thank you. I feel like you're making us sound way better than what we feel like we are, but it's very calm, thank you.
No, not at all. I think we all need to be like embraced and bigged up for what we're doing, because I think we all get stuck in the day-to-day grind and it's like, hold on, I do actually do that. That's why I do an intro, because I'd easily play down what we play down what we do sometimes, and it's amazing. And I also know that we got on this call and discovered one of you has more children than I thought, because you recently became a mum again.
Kept that one quiet. Yeah,
did it so well when we spoke. So yeah, not only this, but Laura amazingly is on maternity leave actually as we speak, so we might dig into that a little bit later. Now, my first burning question was, because I live in London, I think I've realized that I get quite good coffee at soft play. So was the coffee any good at the soft play you were at?
It wasn't amazing, was it, Gemma? But we definitely had worse. So yeah, I think, and I have noticed the standard of coffee in soft plays does seem to be getting better now. Like a lot of the time they'll have a nice coffee machine there.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is we've just become a little bit sort of coffee snobs since we started on this journey.
We're the worst people to ask. Worst people ever.
How often do you how often do you drink coffee? I think that's actually a great question. I wasn't thinking of asking this.
Oh, daily.
Daily, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you must
Laura
be
more so.
Sorry.
Yeah, daily, but yeah, not like we do drink it daily, but not in huge amounts. So more about the quality rather than the quantity. So I'll probably tend to have a couple of coffees a day, and if I have more than that, I'd have a decaf in the evening. So we're not massively wide on coffee. I think we just try and time it at the right time of the day to make sure we get the best impact from it and make sure it's a nice one.
Same. I've had to have an absolute word with myself about how much coffee I drink, because I'm not at your stage anymore. I think you can agree with Gemma. There's a point where you have to be like, yes, sleep still isn't perfect, not amazing, but I'm not completely sleep deprived, so I kind of can't have as much as I once thought.
Yeah, I did come back off that. I think at one point you could literally cut me open and I was caffeine and sugar through and through. That was literally it. But I think we've turned a little bit of a corner now. So
Yeah, I'm here for that corner. We'll see. And so there's so many reasons I want to dig into and why I wanted you guys on here. But please, let's just start with your careers that led to this, because you both have such inspiring careers in the NHS alone. And so what has that looked like for you alongside motherhood?
Do you want to go first, or?
It's all right, you go for it.
I was gonna say, in terms of alongside motherhood, I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? Any job alongside motherhood is crazy to juggle. And I suppose I'm in the middle of performance things, daily operational issues, all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, when I set foot in work, motherhood's kind of forgotten. And that sounds terrible, but just because you're so busy on the ground delivering what you need to deliver, you kind of forget all about stuff at home. And then, no, I would say it's vice versa, but it's not, isn't it? You're always thinking about the stuff from work when you're at home, but we are where we are. I was very lucky. I was always full-time before I had Phoebe, my eldest, and I'd managed to drop. So I worked 4 days instead of 5. And I'm really grateful for the support with that, because I think if I had to work the 5th day, I think that might tip me slightly just with everything else that's going on. But ultimately, it's probably the same as everybody else. You're trying to find, well, we're always trying to chase a balance, aren't we? I don't think there is a balance. It's just peaks and troughs depending on what's going on. But ultimately, it's just crazy. I've worked my way up and I've been fortunate to stay where I wanted to. Not parked my career for a little bit, but I'm quite happy where I am at the minute whilst I'm trying to sort of bring up the kids. Are so small, and then when they get older, hopefully I'll take off again. So I've been really lucky. They're really supportive and have let me kind of settle where I need to settle for now before I want to go off again, which is good.
Yeah, I think yeah, from my point of view, I think I came up, I did the NHS graduate scheme after uni and went down the finance route, and then did that for a while, got all my qualifications and had that really good sort of base in the NHS. And then just before I went on my first maternity leave, I moved out of finance and into a performance role. So I was kind of getting to grips with that role. I went on maternity leave, and while I was on maternity leave, there was a restructure. So there was some really good opportunities in there for new roles, but they were big jobs, so kind of a bit of a promotion. And then while I was on maternity leave, I had to go through, you know, the psychometric testing and stakeholder panels, interviews, all that jazz. And I found that really hard because your head's just in a bit of a different space when you're on maternity leave. It's hard to explain it, isn't it? But I don't think your brain sort of works in the same way. I didn't feel like I had that same like pace and things. So I kind of went through that.
You knew that at the time, kind of thing, because I also think sometimes we don't really get it until we're out of it and we look back on our brain and how we're thinking and we're like, no, it was not me.
I think at the time I sort of thought, oh, I'm finding this stuff harder than I probably would have done before, but I didn't really know why. And I think it's more of a hindsight thing. When I did get back into work, I kind of thought, actually, I wasn't my sort of in my full work mode at that point. I couldn't get myself back into it because being on maternity leave, it's definitely still a job, isn't it? But it's a different sort of job. So yeah, I kind of went through that. And then the second maternity leave, there was another change. So I came back into a different job again. And then we've taken on obviously started up the coffee things as well. So I think it is always that juggle, isn't it? But yeah, we just keep going, just keep swimming, as they say.
We're both quite driven though, aren't we? I think we both like to succeed and crack on with it, and there has to be a way type thing. And I think that mentality is sort of through and through for both of us, and probably is why we are sat where we are now, really.
And I can imagine, Gemma, there'll be a lot of NHS workers hopefully listening to this. So how did you approach going from 5 to 4 days? Was it quite as in approach it with people to get it signed off and things? What's that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was very individual, if that makes sense. So I'd worked there probably good 7-8 years, kind of doing what I was doing before, steadily sort of up through the ranks. And when I was coming back off maternity leave, it was a similar time to Laura. We were on maternity leave with our first children as well as our second. So the restructure she talks about was happening then for me as well. And I basically, this is going to sound terrible, the role that I was doing, what I was sort of seconded to it before I went off on mat leave, and the role they kind of took those roles away. So that was a little bit of an advantage for me because it meant I kind of went back at substantive level, but I could also more easily negotiate, I want to say taking my foot off the gas a little bit. I didn't, but I could drop the day, if that makes sense, and was just like, can I do this? Can I do that? You know, I think I was lucky. I knew the areas I could achieve it, and I could still deliver what I needed to do on slightly lesser hours. And because that restructure was sort of going on as well, they were willing to look at it, talk about it, because at that point they could move certain things around. So it was pretty good. I mean, it's very sort of individual based. I was very lucky again. After my second mat leave, I wanted to apply for the job that I'm in now after that when I went back, which I did. I did say, though, I can't offer the full time, and they were very supportive of that. However, the jobs that we do are big jobs, so I don't know if that would always be the case. I don't know if it's great that the trust is willing to sort of support mums in that way and say, you know, yeah, okay, we really want you to do this. This is great. Let's see how it goes. But I don't know if I was to leave, I don't know if it would automatically be a part-time post, if that makes sense again, or if it would go back to full-time, because the other thing with the NHS is it's almost so reactive all the time. So what's going on, you just don't know what's going to be needed, and things change so quickly. So I just think it's always definitely worth exploring, isn't it? If the worst thing somebody can say is no, and if they say no and you really can't do it, then you kind of rejig your options and do something else. But it was always worth that ask for me, just to see where we could go.
Yeah, and you say lucky, but you're clearly both excellent at your jobs and knew what your boundaries were and what you needed to do. So that, you know, it sounds like you guys did an amazing job of that. And are you guys open at work about your, like, can we call it a side hustle with Tired Mums Coffee? Are you open about it?
We are, absolutely. We probably should shout about it more.
Yeah.
But because we sort of hit the ground running every day and we walk in, it's sort of forgotten again, isn't it? But
yeah, there's a League of Friends charity that support our hospital, and they've got a shop on site, so our coffee's stocked there. But it's so it's nice. It's a real nice community in the hospital where we work. So yeah, people are really supportive, and they ask us about it and how they can get involved in the community. And then we've got obviously coffee lovers there as well. But like Gemma said, we probably should shout about it a bit more.
Well, I can imagine, you know, NHS is full of coffee drinkers, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people waiting for coffee there.
You'll sometimes see us on the corridor with like the paper bags with the logo on, as we're like hustling off to a meeting. Oh, I'll just drop the beans there on the way here, and I'll just drop that there, and off we go. Works quite well.
I love that. That's such a community feel, isn't it? Like, I love it. And so, like, you know, with me starting my business, like many on here, it's sometimes the element is no choice in starting my business, which at the same time I also think was really good. And you know, I kind of really respect people who make a choice instead. So what does it look like for you to run this together alongside? Like, how have you continued to do it? I think what I'm trying to say is, I think so many women must have conversations like yours on maternity leave, and I've seen women do it, and it's full of amazing women take maternity leave all the time and are talking about these businesses, but it's going from talking about it to doing it. What did that look like for you, and how does it look in practice?
I don't think we did think about it. We were talking about this before, weren't we? We discussed it in the soft play, and I still remember doing it now. You were sat up on that squishy slide in the baby bit, wherever we were, and it was just kind of like we were sat trying to think of all the reasons why it couldn't work, and we couldn't come up with them. You know, normally, like, you'll come up with an idea, you talk it round a bit, it goes round in your head, and you can usually go, okay, but then there's this, and you kind of nearly always come up with a hurdle that you just can't get over. But we didn't with this. So we were like, okay, fine. And then I remember you texting me going, I really can't think of a reason why this wouldn't work. And I was like, okay, let's mull it over another 48 hours or whatever and see. Still couldn't think of a reason. We talked to our partners, who were both like, okay. And you could tell the pair of them were itching for something to come in that just wouldn't work. Not in a mean way, but just to give that.
My husband's exactly the same, and it kind of really annoys me that I'm like, okay, can we just not have the reason?
Yeah, well, they couldn't either. So we were like, okay, why not? Let's give it a shot. And then we just started looking up. We got some training, you know, like a bit of help and guidance from sort of local councils and things. Because as much as we'd run businesses before within the NHS, well, run services within the NHS. We'd not run our own businesses. So we were like, okay, there's got to be some kind of difference here. So we just did a little bit of groundwork and kind of put the foundations in place. And before we know it, we just got carried away, developed the coffee, and off we went. So we probably didn't really think about it in as much of the levels that maybe we should have. And we were sort of talking about this before. And if we were to do it all over again, would we have picked coffee? Don't know. Coffee obviously is quite sort of low cost, so we need a high volume turnover to sort of make it go anywhere, which has pressures in itself. It only lasts so long, it's perishable, you know, all that kind of thing. So should we probably have started up with something ridiculously expensive that we would have been able to shift easier? I don't know. But nothing ticked the box for us like the coffee and conversation, going back to what we were trying to do and how we were trying to sort of support people. I mean, the concept's pretty simple, isn't it? It's checking on your mum friends. It's how conversations can actually save lives, and how being honest with those conversations really can. So yeah, I don't really think we did think, really.
I love that. Kind of shows how your brains work as well, because it was kind of like, a lot of people say, oh, there's not this space for mums, and they start up an event, start up something, a podcast, some might say. I love how you were like, it was bringing in something else that is like inspiring that conversation over coffee. Did you have any thoughts for it going down a bit of an event community route?
Yeah, well, and this is kind of, I think we still sort of grapple with this now a little bit, is there are so many elements to what we do. So the core of it is obviously making the business bit has to work to enable us to do the other nice bits, and we wanted it to be really good coffee and all that stuff. That was kind of the straightforward bit, but the community bit and how we give back, that's the bit we're always sort of trying to evolve really and test out where we best fit, because there are tons of organisations, you know, charities, KICs, NHS services, the list goes on, they're available to mums, but a lot of the time people don't know that they're there, and then there's just that missing a trick of just not checking in on each other and having a simple conversation. There's some research around, if you're holding a hot drink, that it makes you automatically trust and have empathy more for the person that you're talking to. So I think that thing about coffee and conversation, having a drink, having a chat, having a check-in, is something that's absolutely, we can help, you know, sort of drive that message. But in terms of the rest of it, so where we go, we have done some events, or community events, face-to-face events, had really good feedback on them. But we just want to make sure that whatever we do launch next, that it gets our full attention, it's consistent, and we're clear where we fit in and how we work with others, because the partnership bit's really important. We're not just trying to be a standalone organisation trying to fix everything. It's where we fit as part of that community of mums, really.
And at the minute, the reality is time, as awful as it sounds. Just we would, as Laura was saying, we'd have so many plans. We'd love to sort of go 4 times faster than what we're doing, but we've got to be realistic as well, and we've got to look after ourselves in that whole process. Otherwise, we'd be a bit, well, hypocrisy, whatever to the cause, however you say it. But yeah, it's about, the reality is we love it, we have a passion for it, and we enjoy it. But it's sort of, you've got your NHS jobs, you've got your mum head on, you've got partners, you've got houses, you've got pets, you've got all that kind of thing going on as well. So we can only give it so much, and it's just making sure to be kind to ourselves as well, and make sure we're kind of practicing what we're preaching, I suppose.
I love that. There's so much top on that. Firstly, I didn't know about the evidence and the warm coffee, but also, like you said, and that's always something I say, is like with my business growth, is that at the end of the day, I'm a mum and I don't want it to come at the sacrifice of my health, because what good is that to anyone or to any of the team or the clients? And it's the same. It goes against, you know, what you're trying to do as mothers, as business owners. And that's so inspiring to hear, because I think sometimes we're all like, oh, I just want to do this yesterday. And it's like, it's okay to take time and do these things, especially at the stage we're all at the similar age of kids' life, and 5 and under, aren't we? And on this call. So it's kind of like knowing that it's very intense, and you guys work full time, like you said, you've got to have that grace.
And I'm not sure it gets any easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not saying
we were sort of chatting earlier, and from when this was all born, and the youngest were probably about 1, I think. Yeah. Was it? Maybe
they were 1.
Yeah, it might even been before that. And now they're sort of nearly 3. But actually, in that time, the eldest 2 have started school, and for me, it's that whole it was almost easier when people were just in not easy, but easier when they're in nursery. I mean, once they start school, it was the whole, oh my gosh, you've got to book lunches online these days, and you've got to remember to pack their school bags, and oh, you have to read with them and record it in a diary. Oh, and there's a thing called Bug Club where you have to do this. And I mean, we got told off, the teacher had a word because not told off, she's very nice. I'd forgotten to log on or hadn't logged on to Bug Club, so I didn't really understand or have a clue what it was, and I just didn't have the headspace to process another thing. I was thinking, gosh, and then Emily will be there as well, and that'll be two of them to do all this for. So, and there's always something, isn't there? And from mums we talk to at events and things, they talk about their teenagers and they start driving, or there's a bullying, or there's I don't know, they start going out on nights out, just whatever it is, it just sort of gets bigger and bigger. And I'm like, wow, this seems to just get more and more intense, actually.
It's like the brain space gets worse, because I hard agree. I've got an eldest in school, and the amount this week alone I've had to remember, like, drop off books for charity this day, pens for charity another day, recycling material. I mean, this is all stuff that is literally happening as we record, and I'm like,
and you've just reminded me, I've forgotten a red nose or something. I'm sure I was supposed to buy one of those this week. I can't remember.
It's insane. And also, I did want to harp back to you, because you said you got help from your local council, and I always think that stuff is really important. So what kind of support did you find to set up your business?
You're probably better with this than me, I forget.
So yeah, it seems to, from what we found anyway, it seems to vary depending on where you live. So for me, Business Wales sort of have like a program for startup businesses. So you tend to get a series of webinars, and then you get access to a mentor for a period of time. And then after that, depending on what funding is available, you can tap into different sorts of mentors or marketing support, and sort of just keeping an eye out really of what's there. And then Gemma's based in Shropshire, so she was able to access it's a program called Good to Great, which is a similar sort of thing, really, webinars where to help you understand business basics, make sure you've thought about all the pitfalls and things, and even things like looking after your well-being are in there. And before you kind of go full pelt into it, you've got the foundations there, and it also helps you build up a bit of a network of startups that are in a similar boat. So it obviously doesn't make you an expert, but it was just really good sort of basic foundation knowledge, and to almost a bit of a checklist to make sure you've thought of everything.
And we still go back to it now, don't we? In terms of, I was thinking, the Good to Great was sort of over 8 weeks, and it was a different topic each week, be it finance, it was everything you need really for a business plan. And then, because I think the idea was you go off and apply for loans or whatever it is you need to do. But yeah, I mean, the fundamental bit is, and then we ask ourselves this probably monthly, what do we do? And you think it's so easy, but actually, you know, that whole elevator pitch thing. And if we were to bump into you, Caroline, and have to tell you quickly in a 4th floor elevator ride what we do, and even now we still struggle because there's so many different parts to us to sort of nail that elevator pitch. And I think people sort of write certain parts off or just think, oh, well, that's fine. But actually for us, it was like, no, this is really important. And every now and then we go down rabbit holes, don't we, and get carried away with things. And it's like, but actually, what do we do? And I think, was it 2 years we've been going since the idea was born? Sorry, not trading. But it's almost, and we are still saying regularly, what do we do? So it's really good.
I think that's a good, well, I think all businesses do. And I still have that, like, what do we do and who's it for? Because our customer has changed hugely in the past 3.5 years. And so, of course, and businesses pivot. And I see that a lot with the clients we work with. And I think something else you said was so valuable there is that the fact it connected you with other founders, because it's very easy. I mean, I think it's still potentially, I don't know, maybe a bit easier to be not too self-involved when at least there's 2 of you, but it's very easy to be self-involved and not remember that there's others around you like you. And it's like what you do with your mum's with like bringing your coffee to mums to talk and connect. It's the same what you've done by reaching out and getting local founders as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that thing about when you talk about who your customers are. So for us initially, we were sort of thinking, obviously our message is about coffee and conversation and, you know, supporting mums, and that was part of our mission. But our coffee was never meant to sort of just be for a certain group of people. We wanted everybody to enjoy it. And actually a lot of our customers, you know, they're not mums. We have all sorts of people buy it. So I think it's that thing, isn't it? You don't, what's that, sorry?
Dad's as well.
Oh, I
Dad's,
bought it for my
Oh, yeah.
husband. It was in his stocking, so he's been drinking it.
Perfect.
Oh, what did he think?
He loved it. Yeah, he's a coffee snob, unlike me. I've got worse over the years, but I'm not quite as good as him. So he's a good tick box.
Perfect.
Well, it's really strange because the coffee industry is quite, well, it is pretty masculine.
Yes.
So it's almost that whole, and you can almost see it sometimes talking to, and I probably would have been in this boat a couple of years ago as well, but it is interesting in terms of sort of the mums and coffee, because we think of it as quite naturally because it's what we do. But you see people go, oh, we've had that many conversations. Oh, I wrote a blog on it really in the end of how, oh, I like real coffee, but oh no, I don't know how to make it. Oh, it's a bit difficult. And I had a conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago actually, who's now on a cafetiere and off, and she's flying with it, because they just think it's almost too hard compared with a tea bag or something. But then also it's very, oh, I don't know, he buys the coffee or he does the bits. And it was a really interesting dynamic that, because I remember saying to you at one event we did, and I said, oh gosh, really does seem to be men that just buy the coffee. Of course, it's not in our house. And it probably isn't in many. It's probably just my little bubble that we've been in. And then, but actually you start getting into the coffee bit, and it is quite, all sciencey, and everything's very can't get my words out tonight, sorry, because it's the evening. Masculine, macho, there we go. And it's quite a male world, and we're sort of two women in that, and you can see sometimes we did a bit of a barista course, and they were quite like, all right, okay, very willing to sort of push us out as not really knowing what we're doing. And we were like, come on, this is ridiculous. This is just cut the crap. We just want women to enjoy decent coffee and connect with other women. That is it. It's as simple as you want to make it. It's as sciencey as you want to make it, but it's as simple as you want to make it. So I guess that's where our little niche hopefully sits.
You're absolutely right, because I've never really thought about it like some of the other competitors, Luxe brands my husband's brought home, and everything from the packaging is quite masculine, and for you to feel like that is ridiculous. When I'm sorry, it surely must be 50-50 people drink coffee gender wise.
Well, that's what obviously we've had stockists, one said, oh, but your label's quite feminine, it's men that buy the coffee here, so you'll be up against the boys' coffee type thing. Like,
you'll be like, yes, put us against the boys' coffee, go for it.
Give it a whirl. We're not trying to take over the world, ruin the boys' coffee, but yeah, it's quite interesting.
Oh gosh, it's like almost again not enough space there. That sounds, thank you for sharing that, because that's a really interesting one, because I'm sure there's many people in different industries that could relate to that being quite heavily gendered. And let's all go buy some mum's coffee to prove that women do buy the coffee in our houses. And I'm always fascinated chatting to co-founders on the podcast. We've had quite a few, several on here actually, because as being one myself, I can see it's like advantages, but also things in the fact that like it's very clear what I do for the business and then it's up to me what I delegate and what I decide it's time to move away from. How do you guys work out your strengths and boundaries and how you work together?
I think we just huh?
We winged it.
That was the first time you guys have spoken over each other. You've done so well.
Sorry.
No, I loved it. It was just a great timed question.
We do wing it. I guess we naturally have different strengths. And I suppose we had a bit of a laugh with this, didn't we, when we first started working together? I think one of the main advantages is Laura and I worked together before we were friends. So we almost knew how to work together more than we knew how to be friends with each other, which was always helpful in this scenario. And we've got very different strengths. So I don't know if you picked up on earlier, I'm very operational background. Laura's got a finance background. She's got the ability to see the other side. I haven't got the ability to do the finance bit. So it's quite funny how we like naturally gravitate to, like, Laura's really great with spreadsheets. She loves a spreadsheet to do all the bits she needs to do. I'm just like nodding along going, haven't got a clue. Whereas I'll sort of lean towards other things, and we've kind of just sort of adopted this little bit along the way, haven't we? Really?
Yeah, I think it hasn't really been planned, has it? And I think we communicate a lot through WhatsApp as well, so we're constantly firing a quick WhatsApp over to make sure we're in the loop, because we don't have the luxury of having like an hour meeting every day or whatever, or half a day a week. So I think we're just kind of like always mindful of each other, going, right, what do we need to check in on here? You know, a lot of the time we know we kind of give each other permission just to crack on, but it's kind of just using your judgment to know when we need to check in, and we just naturally kind of do that really, and then make sure.
And being honest.
Oh, go on, sorry.
No, being honest, I was going to say, was one of the big things we'd said at the beginning, because you just saying then about who's doing what, and I remember that conversation. I don't know where we were going, and it was almost like you could at the beginning when you're settling into it, and it's kind of, oh, well, I've done this, or I've done this, okay, well, is that okay? Oh, don't you think I'm not pulling my weight? And I remember Laura going, look, if we're going to start checking up on what each other's doing, we're never going to get this off the ground. I know you are, I know I am. And I was like, oh, thank God for that. Yeah, fine. And we've sort of flown with it ever since. And we just make sure, being honest, however hard it is, there's a couple of times, you know, we have had those real conversations where like, oh my God, what are we doing? Can I do this? I'm really struggling. Oh my God. Yeah. But we've managed to keep the communication lines open at all times, however hard, which I think has been a real good thing.
And I guess it's that openness as well, from something you said a minute ago, that one of you is going to make a mistake, if you haven't already, a mistake that the other one doesn't quite agree with, and it's just like talking it through, and that communication side of it, and acknowledging that, yeah, you're not always, there's going to be one of you will make a call that you're like, I wouldn't have made that call, but you had to, for whatever reason, have to run with it. And what have you done it where if you go on holiday, have you guys taken a break, either of you, and left the other one to it?
Yeah. Totally.
We accidentally both ended up on holiday at the same time, didn't we? We left him. Gemma's dad was in charge for a week.
No way. How did he do? What was his rating as a
He was fine.
He was great. Yeah,
he was fine. I was like, there's always WhatsApp, Dad, so you can ask me, you know, that's fine.
I love that. I think more founders should do that, because I think so many struggle and just crack on through their holiday. Whereas they should totally do that. Find a trusted family member, be like, here's what you need to do, and here's WhatsApp otherwise.
Well, that's the other problem, isn't it? Because you become really good friends, and then you're like, oh yeah, we'll do this together. Oh yeah, then we've got to keep that going too.
Oh, did you actually go on holiday together as well? And then we're like,
no.
No,
we didn't. But we were talking about skiing or something, weren't we, last week? Yeah. And then Laura's at the house, oh, we could just do this. I was like, oh yeah. And then, to be fair, only until you'd said that, then I hadn't even considered tired mums.
Oops.
You're like, oh, we're just having a chat amongst friends going away, and then we're like, oh, we've also got business.
Yeah. Oops.
And how has it been? So would love to dig in a little to your maternity leave, Laura. So how did you guys prep for that? You know, in the lead up to you deciding to, I assume, take some time off to see how, as we had a brief conversation, Laura, before we started recording, that every baby is different and every maternity leave is different, and you don't really know till you get there how it's going to go. So how did you guys prep for that?
I think it's hard to know, isn't it, before the baby comes along, how you're going to feel, and whether, you know, how the baby's going to be and all of that stuff. So we kind of didn't plan it too much. We did have a conversation of, oh, how are we going to manage
you
this?
You didn't. I was like, you're having a baby in about 4 weeks now. Can you just not? Oh, okay. Oh, well, I think I can make this. I was like, do you know you're having a baby in like a couple of weeks? And she's like, yeah, it'll be fine. Well, it won't be fine, will it? What are you going to just no? And I remember saying to Neil, I'm really uncomfortable. She just won't back off.
It's a bit of entertainment though, isn't it? You know, when your due date's nearly there and people say to you, oh, when's the baby due? And you're like, in a week, and then they go white, don't they? Like, what are you doing?
I loved that with my first. I was 10 days past the due date, and I was so like bored. It was pre-COVID, so I just go out and everyone would be like, when are you due? And I'm like, last week.
Panic. Yeah.
When did you wrap up from work then for this baby? Did you take maternity leave?
Yeah, I did. I saved up some of my annual leave, so I think I finished about 3 or 4 weeks before my due date, and there was a half term just before it as well. So I actually finished it. We went to Scotland for a week, and that was nice. But then the week that I was due, we had about 60 parcels to get out. So I was doing those, thinking I need to get those done, and they all needed to be gift wrap and everything. I thought I'll just, I'll crack on with those, and then I'll have a few days where I can get on top of some other things, and then the baby will be here. And then I literally I think I got the last ones out to the postman, and then I pretty much went into labour. So there was no time. And then I think I almost was thinking, I'll crack on with my coffee stuff, and I'll get on with my life admin things. And that didn't really happen because he decided to come a little bit early. So it was fine. But then after that, we were into the sort of Christmas period of events and things.
I was going to say, when did you have him then?
The 17th of November. So he was meant to be the 21st. So he came a little bit early.
Not amazing for product-based businesses.
No, it wasn't ideal. And then Gemma, obviously, that time of year it's busy anyway, isn't it? So Gemma had other commitments on at weekends as well, but we still wanted to try and be present at some events. So we did quite a few, didn't we? And baby Nico came to a good few events. He was good as gold.
Entrepreneur in the making, little he'll be there hustling when he's older because he's been doing it since weeks old. I love it.
The photos of the event.
It was a good talking point, wasn't he?
It was.
Yeah, you're like, I'm literally a tired mum, drink my coffee.
Well, they were like, oh my gosh, they really are tired mums. I was like, yeah, we really are what we say on the packet. We're not just like faking it.
No.
I love that. Let's have the children present so everyone knows.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd love to touch on a little because we talk about this being your side hustle, your full-time jobs. Have you got a plan for thinking if this will go further and maybe one of you spends more time in the business or even goes full-time one day? What are your thinkings on that at the minute?
At the minute, I think because of time restrictions and everything, it feels like an impossibility if ever type thing, if that makes sense. And we're quite I mean, if you said to me, would you like your coffee to be £1 million turnover business, obviously I'm going to go like, yeah, of course, who wouldn't? But in terms of the reality of how fast we can move things and we can execute things well, it's not going to be sort of a fast thing. And I think where we're sort of quite stuck is we're passionate about the NHS as much as we're passionate about the coffee, and I think that's quite clear from the amount of time that we have spent working for the NHS and what we do there, and how we keep pushing and driving that in the same way we keep pushing and driving sort of tired mums. So it's a little bit of, I suppose at the minute, it's another thing it's a little bit of a pull between the two because we're passionate about both. So I can't see myself going, no, that's it, I'm done with my NHS career. I'm very much not.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I think it's probably safe to say it'll always be a bit of a side hustle. It'd be lovely if we did get some income off it. That would be, marvellous. But no, at this moment in time, I think we've got so much we're trying to do just to sort of firmly get the business right. It's not really on the radar.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've heard of the March Muses on here, and they're exactly the same co-founders, and it's their side hustle, and they've brought people on in the business as freelancers. I think at the minute, I don't think they've got any employers, but that's another way of doing it when you're trying to present ways to women to create businesses, side hustles. Another way of doing it is that there's things like packaging and customer services that you never know, your kids might get old enough and they do all of that.
Free labor.
It's their pocket money.
Yeah.
But they've brought people on for certain parts of the businesses, and that's always a way to go. So then when you are spending time on it, it could be more strategic.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting point of view because it's always good to hear lots of different stories and ways of doing it and not necessarily giving up your day job, especially if you love it.
And it's hard, isn't it? We want to do too many things probably, but ultimately you never know where life's going to take you though. I mean, I didn't know we'd be sort of sat here 2-3 years ago. You just don't know what's going to happen in the next. You just don't know, do you? And I think we're quite flexible and adaptable, that we're okay with that.
Yeah, I spoke to a doctor who had a medical bag business as well to make them more feminine, more kitted out for women and their needs as female doctors. And she takes them along to events she goes to as part of her CPD, so it covers both things. So which is great, kind of similar to you guys at work and dropping off coffee. And she also has no plans to quit. I think she's a doctor 2 or 3 days a week. No plans to quit that because she loves it.
No, that sounds like a good one.
Yeah. I'll send you the bag links. Got a little put coffee in your bag as well. Got a little brand partnership going on there.
We'll have our own shop in the hospital soon.
You never know, I'm giving you more ideas here. It could be like an NHS, a community of side hustlers as well.
Absolutely.
Love it. I think it's good, isn't it, as well, to sort of use your brain in different ways, because like Gemma said, our jobs are really challenging in the NHS, but it does use a different part of your brain. I think when it's your own business, you kind of have to learn a whole set of new different skills, don't you? And even though you're busier, it's good for you. I think it can kind of like a bit of a different fire in your belly, and sort of, and you learn, and it just makes you a more rounded person, and the skills are transferable often, aren't they? You can sort of bring different things to the two different roles, and work out how you can use those skills in different ways. I think that's quite nice to do.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of things that bring you joy as part of looking after yourself, and you can tell for you too. It is definitely that as well.
There's highs and lows, isn't there? Like Laura said before, because it's your baby, you feel the highs and the lows more than you would if it was somebody else's baby or you're working for somebody else. But then equally, I love the highs. Like Neil will say to me, oh my gosh, he said, but when you two get a win, however, so you can just see it in you. The pair of you are just woo on the ceiling. And I was like, I suppose we are, but then I suppose equally, boof, it goes the other way when we get a bit of a blow.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I think in terms of that business world, it's quite nice because it gives us the two. I've always had a bit of an itch to scratch, I suppose, in terms of setting up my own business. And it's done exactly that for me. And you really understand the pros and cons of sort of salary versus self-employed, and annual leave versus never switching off versus somebody's there when you turn your laptop and you can put an out of office on when you can't really there. And it's just interesting, like all the different comparisons between the two.
Especially with how senior you are in the NHS, and like being on a leadership sort of area for that, I can imagine it would be hard to switch off. I worked for senior leaders in the NHS, and it was definitely harder for them than for me at that time as a PA to switch off. I'd be like, see ya, I'm gone. So it's interesting to know for you guys, you feel it's definitely harder as a business owner to do that kind of thing. But you just need to get your dad trained up, and he'll
Totally.
Well,
actually, you say this, we won Theo Pafitis, we won the
amazing
Small Business Sunday award, and we were supposed to go and pick it up at was it a couple of Fridays ago, I think now, in Birmingham, and we were like, oh, that's fine. All of a sudden the dates crept round. Of course, Nico's still pretty new and still feeding every couple of hours, and I thought, oh God, Laura, you're not going to enjoy that if you go there and just have to keep sort of dipping out every hour. Poor Adam will be in the car park with the baby and the others trying to sort of sort them out. And then I had an NHSE cancer peer review thing that I needed to do, and I was like, wow, there's no way we can sort of get out of this. So my sister and my dad went along instead of us, and got the award for us and got their picture taken and everything. And they had a great day, and they took loads of photos and brought back the goodie bag, and they did some of the events and were writing all the things down that they thought would be important. And it was just really lovely. I mean,
so
Holly had the hoodie on that you've got on, and it was just really nice.
I bet they were so excited, and they were like, this is what it's like for you guys, and you're like, no, not every day.
No, we were gutted because it did sound absolutely brilliant, so I think we can go next year. But it was just one of those days where just the stars would not align, everything just crashed into one, and we just had to do something, but we needed to get that certificate as well, so off they went.
And was it really good entering that? Because I don't think I've ever discussed the small business. What's it called again for people who don't know on here, in case they might want to enter?
It's Small Business Sunday. So it's hashtag SBS on X or on Instagram. You can enter through either of those platforms. And then Theo selects 3 winners on each platform every week.
Yeah.
And then so you get brought into a community, and then you get to go to this annual event, and it's it's another really nice supportive network. There's a closed Facebook group, and on there people are always trying to help each other, so it's actually a really nice one to enter, I'd say, and it's free to enter, so worth a go.
Amazing. And how many times did you have to enter to get it?
We got it, I think the second or the third time we got it, so I think we were quite lucky, because I think only about 1% of people win one. Yeah. So I think we're pretty chuffed for that.
Oh, that's so exciting. There's been so much has happened since we spoke. A baby and a board.
We're always up to something.
Pretty much.
And I'm always fascinated because it must be, you guys obviously NHS service, professionals, and I'm a service-based professional in the private sector. So I'm always like, you know, just kind of, how do you go from getting your product? Like, what did that kind of look like when you're like, right, we're going to do it. We're going to do coffee. And then you're like, how?
We did that. We were like, oh, how do we do this? Right, okay. And then we had a bit of a Google, as you do. And there were lots of places that would do white label, as they call it, where they'll just do the coffee and you stick your label on. And I went, oh, it doesn't really feel right. And Laura's like, no, should I feel like that would be? What did you say? All fur coat and no knickers.
It's probably not like a PC term, but I remember I think my granddad used to say, old fur coat and no knickers. I didn't want it to be, you know, we've got this amazing coffee brand, and actually it's just someone else's coffee with our label on it. We wanted to be able to be really proud of it. So we kind of went down that journey to find the right roastery.
So we set out for the knickers and make sure that they were really, really good, and they were ours, if that makes sense. So it took slightly longer and was a bit harder, but it was the right thing to do. Again, it's all back to building on sort of the foundations. And we sort of learned by this point as well a little bit, as you probably know, you have to work with people who align with your branding, messaging, values, all that kind of thing. And so we wanted to make sure we worked with, well, a mum really, and we were very lucky, and we did. So we worked with someone who's got 2 boys, I think, and she was fantastic in terms of getting us all the way through the process because we didn't have a clue. So we
amazing
designed the blends with her. We went up to do a cupping. That was quite funny. I'd never really heard of a cupping. It's like a wine tasting, but with fancy spoons, and you definitely spit the coffee out. Saying definitely, yes, we did. I'd panic then.
They call it cupping. That's an interesting term, isn't it?
What?
You have to make that funny noise, like to slurp it through, which just felt so alien with all these people we didn't know in the room, and then spit it back out and go round. It was really good. It was good fun actually, but I'm sure we were, I don't know, high on caffeine, and we hadn't even swallowed any. It was bizarre.
Just the smell. Are there any qualifications for it, like wine tasting?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there's I think it is a whole world when you look into it, because there's the blending of the coffee side of it and the roasting bit, and then sourcing of the beans and the sustainability side of it. And then there's obviously all of the legalities around the roastery and making sure it's, you know, meeting all of the guidelines and things. And then there's the barcode for retail. So it is a huge, you know, it's a huge learning curve to understand the whole process really. And that was again why we chose to work with an established roastery that would let us develop our own blends, because we knew realistically if we wanted to do that, you know, start our own roastery from day one, that wasn't going to be doable for us with our day jobs. So as much as we'd love to do that, we thought we'll go down that route and work with people who really know what they're doing, so we can, you know, bring a really good coffee to the market in quite a short amount of time. In about 6 months, I think we had our first blends delivered. So still a long time, and back into making sure we got them right. But, you know, compared to setting our own business roastery at premises, etc., it was doable then.
Did you do it alongside the branding?
Yeah. Sort of all kicked it off at the same time, and then I remember that was a bit of a bad week when it was all sort of supposed to come together, and it never quite comes as it's supposed to. We were like, oh my gosh. But then the roastery with the decaf, that was the funny bit, and it came, and our decaf mountain water washed, so it actually tastes like coffee. I don't know how to explain it. You probably know from throughout pregnancy or whatever reason you choose to drink decaf, that's fine, but it has to taste like coffee, not this I don't want to say it, but there's some of the big brands out there and you have decaf and you know it's decaf because it's just not as nice, and we didn't want that. But then I remember trying this one and I was like, no, it's definitely got caffeine in it. It's too strong. You're gonna have to like tell them and send it back. So I remember Laura going, yeah, that's fine, yeah, fine. I spoke to her, yeah, she's gonna send it again. And then I was like, really? And I think this happened about 3 times. I was like, she's probably mixed the bags up or something from when we did the cupping and all the beans are muddled. And you were like, I am sure that it's decaf. I am not speaking to them again. This is the one. I was like,
I will have 5 cups and show you I am.
It was really funny. I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
I've never even thought, you can't get that wrong, can you? That's the thing as well.
That would be
and that's why I was nervous that we were going, oh yeah, it's lovely, and then we actually got it and we were trying something completely different, and it
oh god,
it was definitely the decaf.
Has that been one of your most stressful things? Is there anything here you could share as one of your most stressful things so far?
Different kinds of stresses, I suppose, unless you've got one that jumps out at you.
No, I think it is more, I think it's just the general roller coaster. We've had a few things, like the very first stockist we went into, it was in Chester and it was going really well, and the sales were increasing. Then we had a really, really good month with them. We thought, yeah, we're getting somewhere here. And then they went bust. So we had a lot of stock in there, and obviously we didn't get the payment for the sales. We did manage to get most of our stock back. So it's kind of, it wasn't a massive deal in the scheme of things, but it's kind of like Gemma said, all those lows and all those things that happen, they feel really personal. And then when you're always challenging yourself, going, oh, do we really fit in this world? You know, we're not a roastery, and we're not into, although we admire people who know all the science around the coffee in terms of, you know, the big fancy machines and everything, that doesn't float our boat. We're bringing a slightly different message, and, you know, we don't really fit. So I think it's always that challenge about what do we do? What do we bring? What is our niche? And that constant soul searching can be quite draining, to make sure that, you know, we are doing the right thing and we're doing something good, because we're quite purpose driven. We're always going back to that. And I think it's probably more that general thing about it's quite draining. And you can have a really good week, you'll know this, I'm sure, where you think everything's clicking into place, we're flying, we've got, you know, some new really good stockists on board, or we've had a nice big bulk order, and the next week it can go really quiet and you think, oh no, like what's happened? And it's probably just a general life, but it just feels, doesn't it, it's a lot, and you worry a lot more. So I think for me it's more that constant, like everything feels quite personal and hard.
And it's all the feedback, and you're like, we're very open to, like, oh, please tell us what you think, you know, if something doesn't look right or it's not quite there, you know, please tell us, you know, we're more than happy, and we genuinely are. We're not defensive about stuff. We like to work on it all the time. But there's been times where I can't remember the specific comments, but somebody sort of said one thing, and then the next person's like, with this one, okay, fine, and then they say this and then they say that, and I'm like, oh no. And I've sort of gone, I don't really know now, because we've had so much feedback, which is great, but it's also conflicting and whatever else. I'm not quite sure which way's up sometimes. So you're trying to constantly get that validation, or that, what do I need to change? But then sometimes you can still not be quite sure which bit to change, because there's too much coming in. So it's a real minefield, really, trying to take it all on board.
I think it's so true when you want that feedback, but you're getting it from different places, different tastes, I can imagine, with you. And actually, really timely, I read a post today, a post from a big maternity brand. They're not big, they're a small business, but they're a well-known maternity clothing brand, about being a small business and customers getting impatient. And I think in today's world, which you guys must heavily to relate to, is people don't always understand when you're a small business. And I've actually received a comms today myself, and I was like, you need to understand, it's just me running this, and I'm pretty hot on it, but sometimes something slips through.
Yeah. Evening thing, like, we're grateful to you very much for sort of doing this in the evening, because that's where we can come unstuck, where you get we can do 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, we can do 9 till 3, and it's sort of, I know I have my one day in the week, but I do like to spend that with my 2-year-old, and I have other bits to do and school runs, and it's like, oh no, how do we sort of fit this all in? And
I think we can also relate to that as being the hardest part, especially in a really fast world where people can be quite harsh on small businesses sometimes. Not majority of the people lovely, but it's, you know, occasionally it can feel like, you know, we're running at small business pace sometimes, or have to, just to.
And it's trying to find that, like for us, with Laura was saying before about finding our niche, and it is very much in how we bring all the parts together. So like the community bit, and the campaign, and the coffee, and how we bring sort of everything together. And it can be, I feel like I've totally lost my thread. I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't worry. It was about now I've lost my thread too. Your niche. Yeah, what Laura was talking about.
Oh yeah, sorry, imposter syndrome. That's what I was going to say. Whereas, and I think we went a little bit, because of the way the coffee world can be, and it can be very sciencey, and it has to be very this, and some of the feedback and the messaging, and you're trying to take it all on board. And I think we almost got a big sort of sense of imposter syndrome around how, oh my gosh, we don't roast our own coffee because we haven't learned how to roast coffee in 6 months. Oh my God. So we really need to go gung ho at that side of it. So we're trying to sort of do everything that we could quite rightly to bring the support to mums that we wanted to do, and then we didn't quite execute the business side of it that well. And ultimately, if we don't have the business side right, we can't do the bit we want to do with the community and the giving back and all that kind of thing. So I think that's where we're at almost now, is how we take all of this learning from the past sort of 12-18 months and actually drive the right bits forward in the right way and make sure we execute it well, and that we can continue on a journey to do what we want to do. Does that make sense?
No, it does completely, because I love that, you know, talking about your imposter, like basically what we're talking about was imposter syndrome, but wanting to do things well. And I think so many female founders I speak to, I live in London, we're surrounded by a lot of tech bros and things, and it can feel like that, you know, it might not be coffee industry, you're saying, is very masculine, and it can feel like that running a business, or a lot of our clients we support are men. And you know, I know what I'm doing as a service, and sometimes I really have to make I think more of an effort than my male equivalents to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, yeah, where do we fit in? It's that constant reassessment and soul searching, as Laura said.
Oh, so yeah, you guys probably have loads of insight into this, because honestly, your jobs are very intense. You guys have 2 kids. Now you've got 3, Laura, and I can't even imagine that. How do you feel? And you've got this business. So how do you feel when there are mothers around you being like, how on earth do you do it? And what do you think of that term?
We had a chat about this before, didn't we? And I think the reality for us is how we actually do it is probably other people's nightmare. The reality for us really is, and probably for lots of other mums as well, from the second you open your eyes to the second you go to bed, you're juggling everything and having to spend time on everything. Certainly Monday to Friday. We probably have a couple of hours off Saturday, a couple of hours off Sunday, but the reality is there isn't the level of downtime that there potentially should be for everything that we're juggling. And that's not, you know, some weeks it's better than others. It's the whole peaks and troughs thing again. And that's good. But in terms of how do you do it? I mean, if you want to do something, you'll find a way, as we have, whether you can continue on that long term as it is, or whether you need to make changes in your life to adapt to whatever it is you want to do. That's something else. But that's how we do it at the moment. I suppose we sacrifice sort of, I don't know, it's one of those, like I just said before, I forgot to buy a red nose or something because I've missed something at school, but I'm winning at something else. If I do well at the NHS job, I find that I'm being a bad partner or mum or something. If I'm winning at the coffee, I've forgotten to make a packed lunch. If I'm winning at everything else, the coffee's been neglected. You know, it's sort of that. There is no way to say that we are just on top of everything all the time and we're really good at it. We're not. We make as many mistakes as the next person. We drop more balls than you've probably ever seen in your life because we've got so many balls we're trying to keep up in the air. But that is how we do it. We just keep going and try the best we can, and oops a daisy, and try not to dwell in the don't want to say failure, but the, you know, dark bits. But we're lucky we've got each other as well to bounce off, and it's not often we'll both be on a down. So if I'm having a bit of Laura usually will pick up, whereas if Laura's on a bit of a down, I'll pick up. So it works quite well.
Lovely. And yeah, I think no matter what, as a founder, you've got to be up for an element of that chaos. You're not going to have all your ducks in a row and everything sorted, which I like to be transparent about. And just bearing that in mind, do you have any tips, or because also you're so purpose driven, and I love that. And the point is about mums having this space to talk and things. Is there anything you do to, whether it's 5 minutes or something, that carves out time for you?
We make coffee. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like Laura hit the nail on the head a few months ago, if not longer than that. Coffee is the self-care. Sometimes just having the few minutes to grind the beans and put them in the machine or put the mocha pot on or whatever it is you're doing just gives you that focus on something else for 5 minutes while you prepare it.
It's like meditation, isn't it? But you're looking at your coffee, you're focusing on the coffee.
It's a ritual, isn't it? It is a ritual, and no matter how, you know, if you've got time, you know, put your beans through the grinder and use your machine if that floats your boat. Do all that, and it feels quite special then. Or if you're just having a really bad day and you need to pick me up, you can make a cafetiere with one hand with screaming baby, can't you? You can kind of adapt it, but you can, you know, pretty much you can find a few minutes to making the coffee and have a nice hot drink. Gemma is actually better than me at other self-care things, because you've just started running again, Gemma, haven't you? But at the minute I just find like I'm just probably in survival mode with having
I was
a
gonna say, you've got a
baby.
3-month-old, I haven't.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I didn't expect you, Laura, to really have all the tips. Although I'd be a bit scared if you did right now.
But I do think that a really simple one, and I got it off a lady we talked to in one of our really early chats, was breathing. And I can't remember if it's called triangle breathing or square breathing or circle
Square.
breathing. Square, there we
Yeah.
go. So you go into 4, is it? Hold to 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Because I suddenly became quite aware of when stuff gets on top of me, and I usually notice this at night when I'm lying in bed, but I don't tend to breathe. I mean, obviously I do breathe, but it becomes so shallow and you think, oh, okay. So I've really kind of made myself at that point do the square breathing. And it is funny what a few deep breaths and thingies of that can actually just bring stuff back down again. So I've started putting that in my day because I just noticed there was just more and more, I suppose the more we're trying to do. I was just lying there and I was like, wow, I haven't taken a proper breath for like, can't remember.
That's such a good tip. That's so powerful. And I think we started going on to this, but do you have any more tips? Because I just going back to your purpose and to end it on there, I know from going through some stuff sometimes, and also like some in the past, you think, oh, I could have supported someone better. So along also breathing, making a coffee, is there any other tips you've got to share about someone who might be inspired to support mothers feel less alone?
I mean, for me, if you want to support mums feel less alone, be honest about what it's like. And it's the whole, we're all guilty of it. We all post when stuff's good. We don't very much post when stuff's bad. It's that whole, for somebody that's struggling, and we've had a few people say to us, we've done the Mums Are Fine campaign, and we talk about things deliberately, without the rose tinted glasses on and without the perfect shots. And a few people have said, oh my God, I relate to that. It's so nice to know that somebody else feels like me. And I think if that's what, if you want to help other people, it's kind of breaking these walls down and this sort of comparisons and these competitive, we've got it all. We haven't got it all. None of us have got it all, even if it looks like it. And it's just almost, if you're worried about someone, check in on somebody, have those conversations, listen, but be honest. And I mean, really listen to what they're saying and kind of, yeah, be honest with your own experiences. It's not all been rosy, and it isn't for any of us, is it? You know, it's bloody hard work. So it's just, yeah, for me it'd be that. I'm fed up of going on Instagram and seeing all these, I don't know, or they might talk about that they're struggling, but they've got their lovely spray tans and their beautiful makeup and their hair's blow dried. Well, yeah, you really look like it. So, and it sounds awful, but for the normal person, you just can't relate to in that way. So it's nice to see more normal people talking about more normal things and breaking down the barriers and not being ashamed of stuff either. It's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to struggle with it. God, there were periods where I heavily resented my 2-year-old because it was just so hard and I knew it would pass. But I was like, wow. And it's horrible feeling like that. And it eats you up and you don't want to talk about it. But I was like, wow, I really, really don't like her very much at the minute, which is a horrible thing to say. But it's passed as I knew it would. But when you're stuck in that and you feel like you're on your own, or it's only you that might feel like that, and oh, this is so bad, that's the time when you need somebody to say, oh no, I felt like this, or I did this, or so and so. You know,
that's it. You need those friends or those people just to be like, it's okay. We've gone through the horrible tantrum phase kind of thing. And it isn't just you, rather than pretending all our kids are perfect, like, because none of us are.
No. I think as well, you always sort of, I think a lot of the time, not just with being a mum, but in life generally, you sort of feel, oh, what's that person going to think? And you sort of think about other people's judgment of you and things. But actually, a lot of the time, everyone else is so busy, they've got so much going on, they're not really judging you, they don't really care. You know, so you should just do what's right for you and you know, be honest with yourself and not just try and, you know, keep up with somebody on Instagram. Have those honest conversations, and more likely than not, even if somebody hasn't been through it, they'll have empathy for what you've been through. You're not going to be judged negatively because you've all been through horrible things and want to support each other. But I think you just sometimes think, don't you, oh, that person's going to think this of me. Most of the time they don't think negatively, obviously. Sometimes they don't even notice Because they're too busy with everything else they've got going on.
Yeah, they're too busy. That's what it's about. Post like when founders start initially and they're struggling to post on social media, it's that whole thing. No, actually, people are largely too busy thinking about their own content than to worry about yours.
Exactly.
We were exactly the same, weren't we? It felt horrible, and now we're like, oh well, we're not bothered. We'll just drop on and say whatever we need to say quickly.
Yeah, and I think the power of like sharing your story or sharing, I went through this. I went through a hard time prenatally with my first, had this with my second, and there's always someone who can relate to you and like really feels seen as well, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's definitely one thing that we do want to keep going in the future is the Mums Are Fine campaign, and try and encourage more mums to open up, even if it's via in word form that we can just use on a script and anonymously, whatever, just so that people open up a bit more and just are willing to share things. And it's crazy, isn't it? I remember one I did about being overstimulated. I didn't know what it was, but I kind of crashed back into work after, I don't know, probably the end of mat leave, I think, or was it when school started? I'm not even sure. But it all just felt, I was quite snappy, and this was ending up, I was just totally out of character. I didn't recognise myself whatsoever at work. I'd end up in, not confrontation, but it was almost conversations I would just never have ended up in. And I was thinking, what on earth is going on? And then I read something about mums being they're not angry, they're overstimulated. And I was like, wow, that is exactly me. And I remember when I posted about it, and that many people were like, oh my gosh, this is me as well. Oh, wow, I'm in this scenario. And I was like, but now I know what it is. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do something about it. And the other thing was school. Yeah, everyone goes on about, oh, they go back to school, it's great. And I was like, oh, school for me means that I lose, it's so rigid, I lose all flexibility, whereas I would stay, probably shouldn't, but you do, 20 minutes past clock off time just to wrap your bits up ready for when you next come in and manage it all. You lose that, you're suddenly on a literally like Monday 9 till 3, whatever it is, 9 to 5, you have to be out the door. And for me, that was making me so uncomfortable, because I was like, how am I going to do this without working every evening? I can't work every evening on top of other bits that I do. It's just, yeah, crazy.
I think so many relate to that. I mean, did a talk recently and I was like, did everyone know that school finishes in the middle of the day? And all the mums with school kids were like nodding.
It didn't feel that early when we were there, did it?
Yeah. I think that's it. I said this because I had a lot of friends behind me in motherhood, and you get used to that 8 till 6 nursery thing. And then I'm like, oh, where's that gone?
Big shock, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Big change.
And school are very, well, I don't want to say they're not as nice as nursery, because the people are very nice, but it's just a different environment, isn't it? Whereas nursery kind of help you bumble along. School's like, there you are, off you go.
Yeah, that's it. Nursery, I always felt like, oh God, we're having this at the minute, and we talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. I could literally talk for hours because I feel like you guys are just so open about what the realities are, and us about sharing this. And thank you for doing that work. It's absolutely, I love seeing mums doing that, and it is needed, and as well as a business from it as well. And so what's next for Tired Mums Coffee? Anything on the horizon?
Do you want to go? You probably we've got a few events coming up, but I'm thinking Laura's bound to have these executed better than me, because I've probably forgotten half of them.
I think we've covered a lot of it as we've been through, haven't we? But we're at the point where we're consolidating really our learning over the last year or so, and then working out where we want to focus and do some things really well. So we've got some really exciting events coming up, some food festivals. So we just had one confirmed in Shrewsbury in June, and working on some others. And we're looking at working with some new stockists, so that's exciting. Some new partnerships. We work with a really lovely sports events company, so more work with them, and obviously lots of organisations that support mum with the coffee donations, etc. And then looking at our range, so we've got our coffees. We'd love to be bringing in some new seasonal blends and expanding our gift range, so it's kind of more like that, which still sounds like a lot, but we just decided to focus in those areas and try and get the business bit working really well, and make sure where we're giving back, we're consistent with it, and we're actually making a difference, really. So that's a plan for this year, and then obviously see where it takes us in the longer term. We've always got big dreams if we talk about longer term, but sometimes it's good, isn't it, to go back to basics and try and make sure you're getting the foundations right, so then you can sort of fly from there. That's the idea.
I love that. Foundations, giving back, and and your purpose. That's great. What a fantastic business you're building, and I can't wait to hear more. Where can people find you?
Oh, online. www.tiredmumscoffee.co.uk. The shop's all on there, the blog posts, bits about the campaign. We're on all the social media platforms at Tired Mums Coffee. And again, it covers everything from the campaign to products to just general stuff about us.
I'm here for that. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you
so much.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your
Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.